pressure that they ended up blocking up nicely. They got their longest run of the day, and then some Q run game stuff that we knew we were going to have to defend, and some of it they did well, and you're going to have the give and take, and all you can control really is how you respond. And I thought our guys responded well. Obviously, some stuff to clean up every week, but it's good to see those guys coming up and making plays.
I guess I'm doing this in inappropriate chronological order, but early in the game, you got a sack fumble from Connor O'Toole. It was great to see him on the stat sheet, but also he's a free rusher there. Is that because you called the perfect play, or was that a miss? Was that a bust from Baylor?
No, this was an RPO, right? If they're seeing man coverage, they see that we're sagging off, and they're their tight end in motion. He's getting ready to run the away block on our defensive end, and our defensive end, Connor recognizes it and is getting ready to rush the quarterback. Doesn't know that he's going to be throwing RPO. He's just trying to force the handoff, really, and ends up with the tight end not blocking him and coming scot-free. So it just so happened that Connor, you look at him, you look at the communication from Lander Barton on that play, go back and look at that play. You got Lander communicating with Connor. You got Connor switching his feet, getting into a 2-point, getting ready to rush, and all that stuff. That's what's fun to see is guys playing that, second level defense where they're recognizing what an offense is doing, not just aligning and assigning correctly, but recognizing what an offense is trying to do and take advantage of it.
I asked Luther this at post-practice yesterday, and I wanted to ask you as well. You've got a couple of deep groups on your defense, especially along that front. How do you decide, where do you get the feel on substitution? Because sometimes you got to let people get into a rhythm. Sometimes you got to make sure there's a fresh body out there. You know what the calls are. Maybe some people are better at running certain things than other people. How do you determine substitution patterns in those deep groups?
Well, I think the starting point is you want your best 11 on the field matching their 11. And that, everyone knows in our program there's 4 things you have to do to play here. No off-the-field issues, know the defense, make plays, contribute on special teams. And so everyone's graded, on that, and we'll have our starters. But then it's at what point do they become not as good as they could be? You're looking at drive length. An average drive over the past, 6-7 years at University of Utah defensively is about 6 plays. 6 plays. Can you go 6 plays as hard as you can go? And then where's that breaking point? For D tackles, it's a little bit different because D tackles are taking on, 600-pound double teams, on almost every play. So that there's a lot more energy that goes into that than maybe a free safety who's sitting back in the post and not getting physical until he needs to. So you just have to have a feel for where's that point where they're not as productive as the next guy up could be if he were fresh in there right now. And then that's how we rotate our guys. Usually you see your D tackles, your D line rotating a little bit more because of the physical demand. And then on the back end, it's going to be really, they've got to get beyond 7-8 plays for us to be able to feel like we got to rotate there.
Utah defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Coordinator's Corner, powered by Breitling Luxury Timepieces. You use one of my favorite phrases that I know is part of the culture at Utah football, next man up. And we saw the unfortunate injury in week 1 on the non-contact situation, Kenan Johnson out. And you in post-practice last week said, hey, this room's going to be fine. And I'm not watching the tape like you're watching the tape. I'm not watching him every play or the cornerback position every play. But Scooby Davis, he played well against Southern Utah when he came in immediately. I think he played well against Baylor. You could tell me different. But how big has his performance been in relief and being that next man up?
It's been huge, but that's what it takes to win championships. You have to have depth. And you have to have meaningful depth, not just a guy that can spot here and there, but a guy that can come in and start. And that's what Scooby's done. He played well. He played well against physical wide receivers. Baylor has physical wide receivers on the edges. They've got length. They've got physicality. So very pleased. And again, there's always going to be stuff to nitpick and technique-wise where we can clean things up. But very happy with how he performed. And like I said, in practice, we had confidence in him in that situation. If not, then you switch things around. You move guys and you put Tail back at nickel. But no, Sharif Shah's done an amazing job developing those guys and getting them to the point where we feel good with our backup starting.
All right, we're in this holding pattern of speculation and wondering about what the offense looks like this week in Logan and whether Cam's available or not available, and you know the answer to that question, what it does for the offensive game plan. My question for you is, how much is the defensive game plan affected by what your offense does, by how long they're on the field for those drives versus a short change or a quick turnover, or a 3-and-out, or whatever? How much is your play calling affected by Coach Ludd's play calling and, of course, the execution of that?
Not one bit. Not one bit. We got to control what we can control. We're facing Utah State's offense, not looking at Utah's. That's always been our mentality, is it doesn't matter what our offense does. If the other team doesn't score, they don't win. We have enough depth that, regardless of how long we're out there, we've got enough depth that we feel confident rotating and going. And again, we have confidence in our offense. This is teams win championships, not individuals. Teams win championships, not sides of the ball. So we are all in this thing together, and we're excited to play in Logan for the first time in a while. We know it's going to be a great atmosphere, a great environment, and you only get 12 promised, and every one of them counts and every one of them matters. So we're excited.
Morgan Scalley, Utah defensive coordinator, for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show as Utes head to Logan to take on Utah State. What do they do well? What do the Aggies offense do best?
Man, they have one of the best running backs I've seen in a minute. That really good back, number 3. Their wide receiving core is solid. With Royal, you got Kyrese Rowan, and he's a guy that was in our program, who's got speed. He's got toughness. You watch him block. You watch him do the little things. So they've got a very good wide receiving core. They've got very good backs. And there's going to be a physical game. And, our guys will be ready. I'm fired up for what's to come. But very much respect for what they do. And again, I can't say enough good things about that running back. And I know he's you had another guy go down in the first game, another guy transfer out. So they've done a great job there recruiting running backs. And we're excited for the physical challenge.
You and I have never talked about Bryson Barnes specifically, but knowing you like I think I do, I imagine you have some affection for the guy, and you might be coordinating against him. What's the Bryson Barnes factor in this game? Because he does have some familiarity with your personnel, and I guess even with you.
Yeah, not only our personnel, but our looks. He's accumulated a ton of reps versus the Utes and versus what our looks are, how we space our front, some of the calls that we give. And Bryson, I love. Bryson came to the University of Utah because of myself and Sione Puha. We loved what we saw at the high school level, the fact that he was a wrestler, state champion wrestler. He had records in throwing at his level of competition, and just loved his toughness and his mentality. He fit our culture, and the offense fell in love with him as well, and he helped us win a lot of games. So excited to be able to face this kid who I love. And if it's not him, it's the other kid. I get it as well. But if Bryson gets in, I'm happy for the guy, obviously, and what he's done, and absolutely no ill will. Our job is just to keep points off the board.
Is there anybody on the offensive side of the ball right now for Utah that you're trying to lure over to play defense? We know that there's always that shifting back and forth.
We've always got looks, and I will never name names.
Come on. Give me a little hint at least. I know that these little conversations happen every single year and probably every single week with you guys, but I just want to know who it's going to be.
Oh, you've always got someone. So I've got lurking eyes, wandering eyes, with some of the athleticism and physicality that I see on the offensive side of the ball. But I got to be careful, so I'm going to be quiet on that one.
Did you try to get Caleb Lohner to play defensive end at any point?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. That's just the way my mind works. With that length, I
know. With 1 year to play and with what he was doing in fall camp, I was like, okay, yeah, you're good. We're good.
That's fine.
He was doing such a good job. He's such an athlete. I'm fired up for him.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to see. I'm going to let you go, but before I do, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, and I know it's old news for you, especially with how fast week preparation goes, but Alex Smith got inducted into that Ring of Honor, and you guys were co-captains on that Fiesta Bowl team that I was lucky enough to be the low man on the totem pole for. And it was cool for me to see Alex go in. You guys were a lot closer. How cool was that for you to be a part of and to see?
Well, it's so well deserving, and not only what he represents as a football player, the things that he's done and overcome, but as a person, the personal fight that he's had with his injury, with his daughter, and all the things that they've overcome. And what was awesome is just how, because he's had awards, he's been given awards. He was at the Heisman ceremony. He's been all these different awards. But man, was it to see how emotional he was about it being his alma mater, just University of Utah, how much it meant to him, and to have Bill Bush there, my safety coach, the coach that recruited him to University of Utah, was special, and could not have happened to a better guy. So I know that there's plenty more deserving, and one of our teammates, Eric Weddle, for obvious reasons, but time will come.
What about Morgan Scalley? That name ever going to be up on the side of the press box?
Dude, I'm so far away from that.
You're not. No, you're not.
Yeah. I love the youth. I've loved my time here. So.
All right. I lied. I said that was going to be the last thing, but this one is not football related, so you probably are going to hate it.
Okay.
I was in the store yesterday, all right, and everything is pumpkin spice, everything is maple, and the best artificial flavor and the worst. And I'll give you a hint. The worst artificial flavor is grape. Everything grape flavored is disgusting. But what's the best?
The best artificial flavor?
Yeah. Yeah. Like when you're out and you're like, I'm grabbing a Jolly Rancher, or I'm getting, that piece of candy, honestly, or whatever.
It depends on the candy. If it's a high chew, it's pineapple, and you can get it in Hawaii.
I don't even think I've ever had a pineapple high chew.
Oh my! Okay, I'm gonna take care of you. Next time my people come through, I'm taking care of you.
All right.
Yep. All my Hawaii hookups, they always bring me pineapple high chews, so I'm gonna take care of you.
All right, I appreciate that. Do you have a worst? Is there an artificial?
Man.
Is there an artificial flavor you'll never eat?
Anything that's like coffee ice cream, coffee. I'm not a big coffee fan.
Yeah.
Coffee cake, coffee ice cream, whatever it is. Anyway.
All right. Well, for all you out there listening, he loves pineapple high chews. He doesn't like coffee ice cream. He is the defensive coordinator for your Utes, my buddy Morgan Scalley. I'm so happy to see all your success. Love you, man. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, my man. Hey, pat on the back's not too far from a kick in the butt. You got to always remember that. Love you, brother. Take care.
That's a great quote. Morgan Scalley, defensive coordinator. He is absolutely the man. Just don't give him any coffee-flavored ice cream. That doesn't surprise me one bit with Morgan. Pineapple high chews. Are you aware of pineapple high chews, James Peterson? Did you know about these things?
Yeah, I'm not aware. I also have never been to Hawaii, so there's
James.
that.
We got to get you to Hawaii, man.
I know.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a Sean O'Connell show like a week from Hawaii. Maybe what we'll do.
And you'll have me producing here in the studio.
Be like, James is back in studio, so he's still never been to Hawaii. Here's the game plan, all right? Steve, I know you're listening. We're going to have to find a way to fit this into the budget somewhere. The Polynesian Bowl that takes place, it's a high school all-star game every year in Hawaii now. They've done an absolutely incredible job of building this thing up.
A lot of Utah players end up in the Polynesian Bowl.
Correct. A lot of Utah high school players, a lot of Utah football recruits, the Polynesian Hall of Fame. There's a bunch of Utes in that's at the PCC out there on Oahu. There's a lot of reasons why we should be there covering the Polynesian Bowl every single year. So let's make that happen.
Yes.
Mr. Program Director.
Yes, let's do this.
Okay.
I need to see what the North Shore is all about.
Oh, my gosh. You'll never come back. You'll never want to come back.
That's what I hear. So here's what I hear. Waikiki is not that great.
No. Waikiki is Las Vegas.
Yeah. North Shore is.
Shore is my favorite place in the world. I've wanted to buy there forever. I missed my window because now they are literally 3 times as expensive as they were pre-COVID.
Wow.
Because of the ability for people to remote work.
Yeah.
But it's still such an incredible place to visit. I don't know if you have any of these places in your life, James, where like as soon as you get out of the car, you get off the plane, as soon as you walk into the house, whatever, you just feel better. Doesn't matter what's happening, doesn't matter what your plans are. You're just like, it feels good to be here. That's how Hawaii is.
We're going to make this happen. Sean O'Connell Show live from the Polynesian Bowl.
And, by the way,
and I will not be stuck back here producing.
Another reason is because Morgan Scalley, your head coach in waiting, likes a product that is exclusively, I guess, available in Hawaii. So, in order to strengthen that connection, we go to Hawaii.
Yeah, we have to, in order to strengthen the show and talking about Morgan Scalley, we have to have tasted the things that he likes. So let's do this.
So Morgan
the spin is happening.
I asked him the question about the offense and the defense for what I thought was a good reason, and his answer, I'm glad I got it, but I was somewhat surprised by it. When I said, hey, how much is the defense affected by the offensive game plan? And he said, not one bit.
Yeah, so that was surprising me too.
You have to find a way as a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator, a special teams coordinator to operate in a vacuum that is not actually a vacuum, right? The defense, regardless of circumstance, regardless of how many 3-and-outs you feed them, and I don't think that's going to be the case against Utah State, they still have to perform at the same level. And so Morgan has to have his play sheet, his reaction, his everything, his person ready no matter what happens offensively. However, he doesn't just get to say, well, we won. Defense did a great job, so defense won. We did our part.
Yeah, you win and lose as a team, right?
It's a team thing, right? And I haven't asked Andy Ludwig that exact question, but I imagine he would say something similar like, well, look, it's our job to score. Regardless of what happens with the defense, it's our job to score. So I can't let that be affected. That actually, I mean, I'm thinking of the extreme cases here, obviously, with the defense. But, like, if your offense turns the ball over and suddenly you're backed up in the red zone on a quick momentum change, he's saying, no, that doesn't affect my play calls. That doesn't affect my game plan. That doesn't affect anything. I have to do my job no matter what, and so do my players. That is wild.
Yeah.
Because you would think at least the substitution patterns do get affected.
Yeah, to preserve people's conditioning, to preserve their energy level. Yeah, you would think so. And I think it was Kyle Whittingham in a post-game press conference, or maybe it was the post-game interview with Bill Riley and Scott Mitchell after the Oregon State game last year. They only gave up like 20-some points but lost by a couple of scores. And I think someone, whether it was a reporter in the presser or Bill or Scott, started to say, your defense played well, and Witt cut him off and said, well, didn't play well enough. We gave up 20 points too much. And so to your point about how you can't say, well, the defense won, the offense lost. Witt reinforced that last year. Well, no, they didn't hold the other team to enough points for us to win. While also saying that, yes, the offense needs to be better. So it's certainly, it makes sense that Morgan would say, and I'm sure like you're saying that Andy would say the same thing, no matter what's happening on the other side of the ball, we have to be the same. We have to be just as good.
And it's true, but it's a wild thing because it's like a mathematical impossibility to be like, this is all that matters, except the other 2/3 also matter.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, but that's the difficulty. And, it's great talking to Morgan. It's been a minute since I've had an individual conversation with him on the airwaves. So big thanks to him for joining us as part of our Coordinator's Corner, which, of course, is brought to you every single week by Breitling Luxury Timepieces, celebrating 140 years of firsts. Time is ticking. Find your fit today at Breitling.com. He also talked about that next man up mentality and takes it a step further. And it's not just next man up for this series. It's next man up. You have to have meaningful depth. You have to have someone that is going to be prepared to get stops, to make plays for a game for you, for maybe 10 games for you. In the case of Scooby Davis stepping in for Kenan Johnson, he probably came into the year thinking that he was going to be a rotational player. And halfway through game number 1, he's now a starter until something happens to change that. That's meaningful depth. That means your backup is good enough to be a starter when he needs to be. And he has performed well so far. I thought he had. I wanted to confirm that with Morgan Scalley. Congrats to Scooby Davis for being good through about, 6 quarters now. Starting caliber, good, high-quality player for the Utes. Sione Fotu, who we haven't talked about a ton on the show because Karene Reed and Lander Barton are these star linebackers, but Sione Fotu, after Karene Reed rolled his ankle last week, came in, looked great. Defense did not skip a beat. Obviously had to stop those drives and stop that run and stop the Baylor comeback mostly with Sione Fotu as the rover linebacker. So that was an important quality depth position as well.
Yeah, and as you said, with the cornerback being as much of the depth being as much of a question mark for us heading into the season, it makes it even a bigger deal that that guy in the second line there, second string in Scooby Davis, has been able to come in and kind of take over that starting job, because we were all pretty worried after we saw Kenan Johnson go down, and now it's like, what do we need to worry about? Scooby's there. Cam Calhoun is now in the rotation after missing the first game. It certainly is quite a luxury that not that used to around here yet, to have starter quality on both your first and second string, and it's been a big difference on the defensive side here. We'll see if Isaac Wilson, if he plays, it can make some kind of difference in the quarterback position too.
All right, you have to answer the question that I asked to Morgan Scalley.
Flavor.
Artificial flavor season, right? This is not you got Halloween candy coming out. That's where the artificial flavoring really comes in. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and it was legitimately probably 50 products brand new that I hadn't seen, at least I shouldn't say brand new, seasonally new, that were maple flavored. And I love maple flavor. I love all maple flavored things.
Maple over pumpkin for you?
Oh,
okay.
Not even close.
See, because I'm more of a pumpkin guy versus maple, but it's not my favorite artificial flavor. It is my favorite holiday artificial flavor, if you will.
Pumpkin spice?
Love pumpkin spice. Love pumpkin pie. Love me pumpkin Oreo shakes from Arctic Circle or wherever.
Ooh.
Very good. But Dairy Queen has a pumpkin pie blizzard that's amazing as well that they just released. Anyway, love the pumpkin spice, but my favorite is probably watermelon.
Okay. You and Texter 0107, best flavor watermelon. This person listening says the worst flavor is sour apple.
Yeah, I'm not a sour apple guy.
No way. Oh, dead wrong. Sour apple is excellent.
Apple guy.
Those caramel apple suckers that are a sour apple sucker with caramel on the outside, those are phenomenal.
Those are good, but it's not the first Jolly Rancher flavor I go for. I go for the watermelon, as I just said. You said you hate grape. Grape's one of my favorites.
Grape is horrible and disgusting. Now,
agree to disagree.
Grapes themselves, like the actual fruit,
yes,
very delicious. But
I like the blue raspberry as well.
The artificial flavoring of grape is that's not what a grape tastes like.
No, it doesn't, but I still like it. I don't know.
Also, I read this. I don't know where. I can't cite my source. So banana, like the artificial flavoring of banana.
Yeah, that's also one that's not like a banana.
It doesn't taste like a banana, but that was formulated to taste like a certain banana, like whatever, decades ago, like a certain breed of banana, right? And I guess that banana has been phased out because it's like harder to preserve or harder to grow. That banana is like effectively extinct. So at one point, artificial flavoring banana matched real bananas.
Makes you wonder what grape they matched the artificial grape.
I'm glad we got rid of that grape because that grape sucks. Okay? 877-353-0700. Artificial flavorings. What's the best? What's the worst? Morgan Scally does not like the coffee-flavored ice cream, does not like the coffee cake, that kind of stuff.
That's my head coach in waiting. No, I agree with Morgan wholeheartedly. As I've said before on this show, coffee flavor is not my favorite.
Texter 1804 says the worst artificial flavor is banana. A banana Laffy Taffy? That's good.
See, I like banana artificial flavor, too, even though it doesn't taste like bananas do now. Apparently it did when back then.
I guess so.
I like it, yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. We're gonna ask Delane Fitzgerald the same question. The SUU head coach, college football insider, joins us next. The man, he'll talk a little bit of trash. And he kind of did about UTEP and then got the W. Sean O'Connell Show with Delane Fitzgerald in 3 minutes on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Reminder to all of you out there, less than a month left of Salt Lake Bees action. We have ticket vouchers for you. Text Bees to 33986 to win the last homestand of the season, which is the last homestand ever at Smith's Ballpark. Starts on Tuesday, the 17th of September. Make sure you get out there to the Bees Ballpark. 33986. Text Bees to 33986 for your tickets. All right, we're lucky enough to be joined again by Delane Fitzgerald, head coach at Southern Utah University. His T-Birds coming off a big win over the weekend against UTEP. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Sean, how are you, buddy? Thank you for having me.
Man, we love talking to you. I also love the fact that when I see something in football that confirms my biases, and in your game against the Utes, I saw Targi Lamson running hard, and I said, man, that kid is really good. That kid's going to be a problem for the rest of the year in favor of these T-Birds. And then he goes out against UTEP and puts together an absolutely dominant performance, 20 rushes, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a long of 46. Talk about that young man and his contribution in this big win.
Yeah, Sean, against the Utes, he averaged about 6.5, 7 yards a carry. So the rallying cry in our staff meeting the next day on Friday morning was, why didn't we just hand him the ball on every play? Because six plus 6 equals a first down, right? If you continue to get first downs all the way down the field, it turns out okay. Targi's had a great he had great preparation for his senior season. He had a great camp for us, played well against the Utes, and then the other night I thought he was underused in the first half, and we went in and we made some adjustments offensively. I think Targi rushed for 140 yards in the second half. I know his total was 183, but 140 was in the second half. And then, Sean, he didn't have a loss of yardage run play. So now we handed the ball to him 20 times, and he never lost a yard, which is big in our offense.
It's absolutely phenomenal to see that hard work rewarded. And there's this adage that we use. I mean, I know I lean on it probably too much in media, where it's like, hey, your biggest improvement of the season is going to come between week 1 and week 2. Your biggest improvement in your career is going to come between year 1 and year 2. Do those hold true, Coach? Is that how it really is, where you get that live action out of the way, and you did it against a really tough team in Utah, and then practice is better the next week? Everyone kind of knows and they're in the rhythm. You tell me.
No, Sean, you understand football. It's why I like talking with you, and you're exactly right. The biggest improvement in a football team happens from the first game to the second. I always liked it, and hadn't had it in a long time. I used to like the bye week between the first game and the second game, because then you had 2 weeks to improve. But we made a jump from Utah to UTEP, and understanding who our kids were and what they were capable of doing. And then they made a jump just on their football ability from week 1 to week 2.
So now in week 3, it'll be UC Davis, which of course is back on the FCS level of competition. What are they best at?
They have the number 1 rated FCS tailback. So the number 1 rated tailback at our level in the country, and he's a cowboy out of a small town in Idaho. Name's Lan Larson. You got to love it. He sounds like a cowboy. But tough as a pine knot, just a really good football player. Sean, when he goes from tailback to wide receiver, he's the best wide receiver on the team. He's the best kick returner on the team, just a special player. But they, on offense outside of him, they're just surrounded by big, tough, smart kids. That's kind of the staple of their program. And, the roster was built there by Dan Hawkins, former Boise State and Colorado coach, and he did a nice job. But they're big, strong, tough kids around him. They switch over on the defensive side of the football, and it's more of the same. A lot of big, strong, tough, smart kids. They have smart kids in their program. What irks me a little bit is they've got an All-American safety, and he's one of the top 5 safeties in the country, and he's out of Pleasant Grove, Utah. So it bothers me that he went through the recruiting process before we were here, because the schools in this state should have never let him leave. Great football player, last name Connor. And then his younger brother is a starting outside linebacker, and maybe the second or third best player they have on the team. So 2 good Utah players running around on defense. And then, Sean, they're really solid in the kicking game. But people think I'm blowing smoke. They're a better football team, better football program than UTEP is.
Delane Fitzgerald, SUU football head coach, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I hate hearing about Utah players falling through the cracks and ending up out of state. Probably not as much as you hate it, but I do hate it as a guy who played his prep ball here as well. I've often said, because I transferred from Utah to Weber State to finish my career, that the biggest difference is the offensive lines and the defensive lines. The size is just more consistent along the offensive lines in FBS football, and sometimes they're a little smaller down in the FCS. But with a team that's building things around the run game like you have, and like UC Davis, if their best player is a tailback, and they're going to lean on that, how good is their offensive line?
Yeah, and they're solid top to bottom. How good is their offensive line? I'll say this: their offensive line is better than UTEP, and I don't want to discount our victory last week. UTEP's got 22 more scholarships than we have, and they're spending $20 million more per year on football than we are, so they should beat us. But UTEP's, UTEP's, how do you say this? They're to their detriment. They're not very good up front on either side of the ball. UC Davis is big and strong, and they have a bunch of kids that have played there. On the offense and defensive line, continuity and how long they played is really, really important. When they've played together for 2 or 3 years, they usually execute pretty well, and that's what UC Davis has going right now.
All right, you talked about how against Utah you should have given Targi the ball more often, and then you talked about how he had the slow start in the first half against UTEP and was underutilized. Are we going to remedy that? Is this a guy that you're going to ride this horse early and often against UC Davis?
If we don't remedy it, if he doesn't get the ball early and often this weekend, they should just fire me on Sunday morning.
Well, Coach, they're not going to do that because you've been doing some good things. You're building this program, it feels like, the right way. But that's good news for all of us who've become fans of the young man from Spanish Fork. 183 yards and 2 touchdowns if you're just tuning in. That's what Targi Lamson had, the SUU running back. Our overarching theme in the show today, I had an interesting conversation with a player at Utah practice yesterday about playing hurt and about the expectations from your teammates and your coaches to play hurt, and how in a world of business-related college football where you got to protect paychecks and NIL and maybe an NFL future, how those decisions may or may not be different than they were 20 years ago. I really genuinely don't know if players are still the same about it or they're not, and if the money has anything to do with it. I'm curious to know where you stand on that, Coach. Are players as willing to play hurt now? Are they less willing? Is it the same as it always was, where one guy's tough and the other guy's not, or the coaching staff is the larger determinant? You tell me.
Yeah, Sean, the level of toughness, it varies from kid to kid, and it's largely dependent upon how they were raised. But tough times and tough fathers end up raising tough young men and tough daughters. And it really goes, and here's what you have to do, and Kyle Whittingham is knocking it out of the park with this, is you recruit families. In the recruiting process, you find out how the kid was raised. Hey, did mom spank them when they messed up growing up? Because if she did, they're just going to turn out better than if she didn't. But you have to research that stuff and find out that stuff on the kids playing when they're banged up. Some kids do and some kids don't. I will say this: over the course of their careers, college and NFL, the kids that can block it out and just go. You got a sore calf because you got a bruised calf because it got bruised a week before. The kid that can block that out and just play really, really hard is always better than the kid that can't. And here's Sean. They end up being better citizens in life too, because even though how do I say this? Even though some of the physical blows stop, as we get older in life, the mental blows and the financial blows, they don't stop. But the kids just understand that you just got to fight through it.
Do you think it's different than it was 20 years ago, though, or was it always about how you're raised and always about your family, and
different.
It still is? Okay.
This won't be politically correct, but it is extremely different. And Sean, I'm talking to you, and we've talked a bunch. I don't know how old you are, and I don't know anything about your history. But we were the kids that grew up through the 80s and 90s, like I did. We were raised by fathers that fought in a war, and those guys were raised by fathers that fought in a world war. So we were raised by military parents, and blue-collar, factory-working parents, and we were much, much tougher than the kids are right now. That toughness these days in 2024, you only see that toughness from a really low-income young man that's been raised right, or from an immigrant, somebody that's a first-time American and trying to make their way in America. That's where you get that toughness from these days.
Delane Fitzgerald for just another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Another completely unserious question that I want to finish with. It is artificial flavoring season, Coach. You got Halloween candy coming out. I was in the grocery store yesterday, and everything is pumpkin spice and everything is maple. What is your favorite artificial flavoring, and maybe one that you just absolutely will not eat? I will not put an artificially flavored grape, Jolly Rancher, Sucker, candy anywhere near my mouth. I don't want grape flavoring anywhere near me. No Kool-Aid, nothing. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite?
You make me laugh. Never been a candy guy. I'm not a sweets guy. Hey, whatever the flavoring is they put in Mountain Dew, that's probably my weakness there. Whatever the caffeine flavoring, sugar in Mountain Dew's probably. What do they call it down here? The LDS coffee. That's probably my weakness, guys. I'm a meat and potatoes guy.
Mountain Dew is the vice for Delane Fitzgerald. Coach, I never would have guessed that. I never would have taken you for a Mountain Dew guy, but now we know how to get to you if we need it.
Absolutely love it.
I appreciate your time and your perspective as always. I appreciate your unvarnished manner of communication. It is incredibly refreshing, as I think I've told you before. Good luck against UC Davis, and we'll have you on again soon, Coach.
Hey, love y'all's show. Y'all have a great fall.
Delane Fitzgerald, SUU football head coach. That guy's awesome. And yes, he will say things that are not necessarily politically correct. Refreshing is the right word for it. Want to remind all of you, October 5th, which is a bye week for the University of Utah, FightCon is coming to town. Hoist Gracie, UFC champion and legend, is going to be running a seminar, doing photo ops. If that's not enough reason for you to get down there, I don't know what is. There's going to be jiu-jitsu tournaments. There's going to be that Hoist Gracie seminar. There's going to be boxing, kickboxing, demonstrations. Of course, I come from the MMA world, so you know this already appeals to me. If you're a parent of children, and you just heard what Delane Fitzgerald said about developing toughness, and you don't know how to do it yourself, put your kids in wrestling, put your kids in jiu-jitsu, put your kids in kickboxing, start them young, let them turn out tough, let them handle adversity, let them do it in a controlled and a safe environment, and you're going to look for the right kind of classes, the right kind of teachers. Guess where you're going to find them? At FightCon. Join us on October 5th. FightCon, tickets on sale right now. All right, Sean O'Connell Show. The presidential debate happened last night, and we are not going to get into any political arguments, but I'm going to tell you exactly how this presidential election is like the transfer portal. Sean O'Connell Show on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. All right, we had the presidential debate last night. Social media blew up with it. You knew that was going to be the case. I am not going to spend time breaking down politics on the Sean O'Connell Show. Not today, not ever. All right, it's not something I'm going to do. Sports and politics, they are mixed. They are intermixed in our country. However, on this show, you probably tune in here to escape all that business. If you want to get my personal opinions on it, I don't know, call me. I do want to say this because I immediately saw all the jockeying, all the positioning on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of the argument on social media. I'm patting myself on the back because I've crafted my followings well enough that I get a strong representation from both opinions when I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed, okay? And it's not the for you, I'm doing the following, all right? So I'm getting, like, you scroll and it's one tweet that is staunchly in favor of one side, and then the next person is staunchly in favor of the other side, and they're both equally sure that they are 100% right, okay? I'm going to bring this around to a sports conversation. I'm going to do it for 2 minutes, and then we're going to get off of it, and we're not talking politics, okay? We're not doing it. I just want to let you know that when this presidential election happens, the outcome is going to be disappointing for half of you listening. Somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know exactly the political leanings of my listenership. I know how we generally lean here in the state of Utah, but I know there are a lot of folks who are going to be disappointed regardless of the outcome of the election. And I'm not going to tell you what I hope for. I'm not going to participate in that farce of political theater. I am going to say this. All of us of a certain age demographic especially look at what's happening in sports and look at what's happening with the loyalty to your favorite college football program, your favorite college basketball program, and something is going to happen in November, and then obviously, you see an individual get sworn in January, and half of you are going to dislike the situation. Are you hitting the transfer portal, or are you still trying to help the team win? That's what you got to decide. Because the transfer portal in this case is moving out of the country. So we know that you're probably not going to do that. Decide right now that regardless of the outcome, you're going to help the team win. Be Bryson Barnes, okay? Be one of these individuals who's on a team in basketball, in gymnastics, in football, in whatever, where you don't like the coach, but you're playing your hardest anyway. Put yourself in the shoes of you're a linebacker at the University of Utah, and suddenly Lincoln Riley gets hired to be your head coach and Alex Grinch is his coordinator, and you know that all of a sudden your defense is not going to be what you want it to be. You still got to play hard. You got to try to help the team win. That's all I'm going to ask from anyone ever on this political front. It's the only thing I'm going to say. All right? We are Americans. All of us want the same things at the end of the day. We want our families to be safe, to be secure, to be successful. We want opportunities. I want that for all of you. I hope you all want that for me. And the political leanings, one way or the other, are going to displease you if you get too deep into it, if you root too hard for that team. If the wrong coach is in place when this election is done, in your opinion, you got to still help the team win. You got to still work to help the team win. You can't throw the fit. You can't. I'm going to leave it there. Don't throw the fit. Don't take any extreme measures.
Let's all pull together, huh?
Let's just, I'm seeing it already, and we've been seeing it for years, but I wanted to draw a sports analogy to this, and the transfer portal is the perfect one. The only thing you can do in sports when the new coach comes in is you can choose between still working hard and trying to help the team win, or you can hit the transfer portal. But this is real life, so the transfer portal in this case is exiting the country.
Which is, as much as people joke about, I'm gonna go somewhere else if this happens or if that happens, it's not practical, right? So let's just pull together and still help everyone win. I love that message from you, OC. This message
endorsed only by me does not necessarily reflect the opinions of ESPN 700, Broadway Media, or James Peterson.
I'm holding up that sign for him to read. If you're watching the YouTube stream, no, you can't see that. Yeah, it's a great message, and Sean O'Connell approves this message.
By the way, I made a tongue-in-cheek tweet last night that was exactly right down the middle on purpose, and immediately got attacked for it. Like, that's how ugly politics
this climate,
get.
man.
It's the craziest thing. People were just like, I know who you're voting for. You suck. And I was like, I literally just said, I don't like either of them that are standing here right now. That's what I said. And people were just like, nope, you do. I know you do. I can tell who you like. I was like, okay. All right. You're smarter than me.
Hey, that's the other message. The message that I have is, guys, no matter what happens, we are less than 2 months away from all this craziness being over. The election season is one of the worst times because of all this division and stuff. We're almost through it, guys. We can do this.
If you think it's going to end when the election
and it
happens,
probably won't, but it
you're
gets
an insane person.
You're right. It won't end, but it tends to die. It tends to die down and be a little less intense after the election.
Also,
over.
public service announcement, neither of them care anything about you. They don't. Not individually. Not in your life. Not in your complicated
Not
daily
like your
goings.
favorite sports teams care about you.
It's your sport. It's the Utes who care about you. It's the Cougs who care about you. It's the Jazz who care about you. It's us right here on ESPN 700. We're the ones who care about you.
The Niners, Colts, whatever they might be. Broncos, if you're one of them.
On a lighter note, I want to remind everyone also this time of year, you're starting to get into gift giving season, right? Which means you're getting into shipping season. Don't trust anybody under the sun with your shipping needs except for my friends at Postnet. You can ask them about virtual mail. They can help you set up your physical mail with a virtual inbox. It's really convenient. It's really easy. It's really incredible. But also when it comes to packaging, shipping, printing, all those things that the impending holidays bring about, your kids are going to be picking out Halloween costumes really soon, and you're going to be taking pictures, and you're going to be printing them to send them to grandma and grandpa. Do not trust anyone else to do that for you besides my friends at Postnet, and tell them, of course, that OC sent you. All right, we're going to talk more Utah football with the quarterbacking legend, host of the Down and Dirty podcast, and, of course, the color analyst on Utah radio broadcasts. Scott Mitchell joins us next on ESPN 700. All right, we're going to have Scott Mitchell here in just a second, Utah football legend, host of the Down and Dirty podcast, and also color analyst on Utah radio broadcasts. Part of our Big 12 at noon discussion brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. Go to mountainlandsupply.com. Another reminder, Salt Lake Bees, the season is winding down. Final homestand begins next Tuesday. If you want tickets, text BEES to 33986 and win a pair of tickets to a Bees home game. Final homestand at Smith's Ballpark. Unfortunate. While we wait for Scott to get here, I went up to practice yesterday, post-practice media availability, talked a little bit with Luther Ellis, had a conversation with Van Fillinger, and we talked about, Van not playing hurt this year. He's healthy, and his production has reflected that. In the first 2 games, he's been excellent. He's the one who pushed the pile, made the field goal block happen. He had a sack last week. He had 2 sacks the previous week. I mean, he's looked excellent. Great in run support. He still wants to improve, but talked about how last year he was playing hurt, and that was something that the team needed from him. And I put a poll question out there about whether or not in this NIL era where it's all business in college football, you think players are more likely to play hurt, less likely to play hurt, or is it the same as it always was, where guys are willing to play hurt if they're tough and they're not willing to play hurt if they're not tough? And it's, it's just the way it always was. You tell me what you think at Real OC Sports. We welcome in Scott Mitchell. Scott, I'm going to extend that question to you. College football is a business now more than it ever was, and guys do make business decisions with their bodies and with things like nagging injuries and that borderline where you're not necessarily injured, but you are hurt. What's your opinion? Do you think guys are more likely to play hurt now, less likely to play hurt now, or is it not really changed?
No, it's definitely changed. It is so much more about not necessarily where they are today, like am I going to get more NIL money or am I going to get NIL money? It's really how does this impact me in the draft? And if you're a really, really good player, you probably don't play, knowing that playing kind of halfway, you've already established in the minds of NFL scouts that you're a heck of a talent, and they know that, and so you don't have anything to prove, and you'll see guys sit out. You're seeing it in bowl games. Guys are sitting out in bowl games, and so that's even not necessarily when they're injured, but then you have some guys who go, you know what, I need to play. I need to come back and play. I need to do more. I need to show more and get a better picture for people to evaluate me to move to the next level. So all these decisions, playing injured, playing not to get injured, are all based off of where am I going to end up in the NFL. Now, there are some guys who have the rah-rah college spirit, right? They're like, oh man, I got to come back. We got to rewind this thing. We were so close to a championship. We're right there, kind of. And I think you see that to some degree with some of the Utah players who have come back. And part of it could certainly be wanting to get better draft position and better draft stock and all that stuff. But most of the time, I would say players today are going to sit out because of the economics of injuries. And you mentioned Van. Boy, he is playing great. I mean, he looks really good. He made a play against Baylor where he's got that edge gap and he's filling that end gap, and the quarterback keeps it, which isn't even his responsibility. And he reroutes himself and goes and tackles a very fast, very athletic quarterback for little to no game. I mean, that was just a heck of a play, and it really gives this is a good indication of where Van is at this time. But guys are gonna. It's all about the money these days. Very few rah. Hey, let's do one for the college spirit.
Well, as long as we're on Van, what do you think Van's NFL prospects are? I mean, he's a physical specimen. I don't know what he's going to test at in like a 40 and things like that. When he's healthy, if he has a good productive year, is he a draft pick?
I think so. I really do, and I especially just off that play I just described. He's played a long time at Utah, so there's a good body of work, and I was concerned watching him last year. I'm like, man, this guy must have hit his ceiling. Maybe he's maybe he's a bust, maybe he's a something, I don't know, but just seemed like he kind of hit his ceiling. And then all of a sudden I start watching him this year, and he wasn't even slated to be a starter as Logan Fano and Connor O'Toole. And I mean, I know he's he's kind of an or guy. But he's definitely an and. I mean, he's playing so well, and it's all about the motor, And you see Connor O'Toole, all these defensive ends for Utah. They're just relentlessly in pursuit of the quarterback. They're relentlessly putting on this surge and this pressure. The defensive line in general, I think, is the brightest spot of this football team, in my opinion, so far this year. But Van, I just looked at him. I was like, oh, man, I guess he's just peaked. And then it comes out that he was injured pretty much all of last year and played through it, which speaks volumes. But, man, he's a different player this year. And that's what you want to see. You want to see guys that they come in as freshmen and they get better and better and better. Those are the guys that get drafted. Those are the guys that really make it in the NFL and have any kind of, you look at Jonah Ellis, who's kind of this same trajectory. And just, before this season's over, Van Fillinger stays healthy, he's going to wreak havoc in a lot of backfields this year.
I mean, we've got the sound on ESPN700sports.com, and we'll play it for you on the air at some point. He said to me, I didn't really want to play last year, but I needed to, or the team needed me. I don't want to butcher his quote, but he said, I didn't really want to play. His body was compromised, and he did it because his team needed him. And look, I'm with you. I was probably overly critical. Well, now in hindsight, I definitely was overly critical of what we've seen from Van Fillinger because I was not aware of how compromised his health was and how hurt he was and how he was mentally ready to shut it down. And then because Fano went out with an official season-ending injury that required surgery and absolutely there was no choice there. He couldn't just play through it. They didn't
have anyone.
Like Van was like, okay, fine, I'm playing then. And that's why I asked the question. That's why I'm asking you, because I think there are a lot of guys who still, especially guys who feasibly have an NFL future, and he certainly is in that category. I don't know if he'll be a draft pick or not, but he feasibly has an NFL future of some kind. There are a lot of guys in college football now that I think would say, well, sorry, coaches. Lewis Powell, love you. Morgan Scalley, love you, but my body says no right now, so I'm not going to do it, especially not going to do it if some yahoo on the radio like OC is telling me I'm not a good player because he doesn't realize I'm at 60%. I mean, that I was impressed with his honesty, and I was impressed with the fact that, he was ready to do it even if it wasn't going to be an ideal scenario for him last season.
Yeah, I've always liked Van Fillinger's demeanor, his attitude. He certainly seems like a very stand-up guy. He's a tough guy, and as I mentioned earlier, there's guys that have that, esprit de corps, right? And they're there for the team. They're doing all this stuff, and they just want to be there with the guys, and that bodes well at the next level because everyone's hurt. Everyone is hurt, and you got to learn to play through a lot of pain if you're going to play in the NFL. And you get to that level, you don't get on the field, you don't get paid. So you find a way to get yourself on the field and stay there. And being able to fight through some of that stuff, and again coming back
I already did.
And saying, showing that he's a better player this year than he was last year and the year before will really bode well for him. It'll tell a very strong narrative, and these teams, they'll look at all that stuff. Like they'll go through years and they'll examine a lot of things before they draft a guy. So he continues playing like he's playing right now. I don't see him having any issues or problems going to the next level.
All right, I want to turn the focus a little bit to the matchup Logan and Utah State. We had Morgan on earlier for the coordinator's corner, and he was very complimentary of Faison, the running back for Utah State. Felt like he's one of the better backs they're going to face this year. And you and I have already talked about this. You can't let a team like Utah State hang around. You gotta really just put the fire out before there's even a spark. Does that mean
Yeah.
Utah's got to jump out to an early lead here?
Well, in my opinion, one of the important things for this game is to have a dominant performance. Look, if you're who you say you are, you're a team that's going to contend for a Big 12. You're at the top of the heap in a conference. You have to act like that when you play an opponent that you absolutely should beat. There's always this focus of it's next up, right? Well, this is next up, and you can't be looking ahead, and you can't be looking back at what happened last week, and you really have to take this game and really play at a level where when you're done, the last thing you want to have in your mind as you go into conference play is that you had a dominant performance. You don't want to go in going, oh boy, man, we got problems. We're playing down to our competition. We're having lapses in emotional energy during the game. We're letting, we're not giving effort on every play, whatever. And so I think it's really, really important. Not only do they get out early as a team, because Utah State, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Utah. You expect anything you possibly can. This isn't a team that's going to go, hey, we want our paycheck and we're going to head to Cedar City like SUU was. This is a team that goes, we got to right our ship. We have to make a statement. We don't get to play Utah very often, and when we do, we need to play well, and we're at home. So you're going to get the very best of Utah State, and it's just really important to have that complete dominant performance. So the last thing you think of is, okay, we're where we need to be.
Scott Mitchell is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Take advantage of better than employee pricing right now. Brought to you by Larry H. Miller Chevrolet. Scott is always brought to us by Larry H. Miller Chevrolet. You've watched a lot of Bryson Barnes football, and he joined me on the show earlier in the week and said, yeah, I'm planning on being the starter. I'm planning on playing against my former team. I'm planning on trying to make plays against the guys that I had to make plays against in practice for years. You've watched a lot of this football, and you've had to kind of explain some of the limitations of Bryson Barnes in the past and obviously identify his strengths. So for the folks who listened to those Utah games and heard you do that, refresh us. The things that, as a quarterback, Bryson Barnes is best at and the biggest issues that maybe Utah can exploit.
Well, I think Bryson's just understanding of he's a guy you can kind of count on. Like he's going to show up. He's very dutiful. He understands the offense. He understands how he fits in the offense, and he can make some plays. I mean, you look at the Florida game. He threw a nice long chunk play, first play of the game last year at the beginning of the year, and so he has that capability. But on a consistent basis, you put him in the pocket, you get pressure on him, and you make him have to make tougher throws down the field on a consistent basis. That's where he's really gonna break down. But he's a guy that you can count on. He's gonna be highly motivated in this game. There's not gonna be that mystique. He knows his opponent very well, and so the intimidation side of it, won't be there. Now it's a two-edged sword because the other side knows him as well. You're going to get a feisty, competitive, tough guy who just has limited abilities. I mean, he just, sitting in the pocket, making throws consistently. That's a challenge. You get him where you give him an easy throw, kind of a first read type of thing. He'll hit that on you. So you got to make him uncomfortable. He's not going to beat you running. He'll try to run and do that, but he's not a guy that, he's just an incredible athlete that's going to just, beat you running with the football. It's in some ways a little similar to last week in that you got to keep him in the pocket. You've got to make him hold the ball in the pocket, make him have to go to that second, third read or make the throws tough for him, really challenge those wide receivers with the DBs. And you should have a very good defensive output. I think even better. I think Utah has the potential this week have even a better result than they did last week.
For Utah's own quarterbacking situation, for now we're operating under the assumption that Cam Rising will not play in this game, or if he does, he'll be limited in some way. So I'm going with Isaac Wilson as the starter and framing all my questions and my thoughts about this game about, all right, how do you maximize Isaac Wilson? And you and I have talked about this some, but I haven't gotten this specific. Scott, what is the easiest throw and read to make? Or I guess you would read and then throw. What's the easiest read and throw to make to get this guy rolling in a game, starting out with a couple of completions?
Well, the middle of the field and, that 5 to 8 yard range, and it's with your tight ends. You've got a stable of tight ends. You could go out and it's the easiest throw. It's a lot of mismatches. It's a big body. It's not one you have to, lead or is, typically matched up with a really athletic defensive back. And you deploy, 2 or 3 tight ends over the middle of the field. And you just have these kind of progression reads where they just sit in these holes, and they're kind of those first down, almost like a lot of how the West Coast offense is built. Those progression reads, it's a controlled passing game. It's considered like a run, and Utah has it in their system. And you've got guys you want to get these tight ends involved. You want your playmakers touching the ball as much as you possibly can, and you can do it with the wide receivers as well. But for a young quarterback, his best vision is right in front of him, and it's a lot easier. And it's kind of not way down the field or seeing the whole field. It's kind of just a part of the field. Attacking the middle of the field with these tight ends is a really good strategy for Utah, and it's not only for the quarterback, but also for the tight ends, the wide receivers, getting them involved. You've got to get Isaac Wilson confident early, and not only him, but everyone else. It's like, okay, Isaac showed up to play today. Let's go. We need to get behind him and support him. And if you put him in, the only time he's throwing the ball is on 3rd and 5+, the percentages just aren't there. And there's just an immense amount of pressure to convert in those situations. That's really hard for a young player to do consistently. So win more on first down. They're going to stuff the box. They're going to put an extra guy in there, throw the ball on early downs. They're there to stop the run, so the pass rush is not the same, and it gives him confidence early in a series to go, okay, I'm in my flow. I'm seeing things. I'm throwing things. Because Isaac's very talented, and he can throw the ball. He can throw it anywhere. Might have a stronger arm than Cam Rising right now. So he's certainly capable physically. Just getting those nice, it's like when you're weightlifting and you just kind of start out, put a 45 on there on each side, and just kind of get warmed up a little bit, and then you add more weight. It's kind of how you do it with football. You just give him little 45s to start out with.
If you're Cam Rising and your throwing hand is not available to you right now, how do you get better in practice this week?
How does Cam Rising get better?
How does he get better if he's not throwing this week? Because he's not perfect, right? And his games, his performances through one total game of football, two halves, not quite even, have not been perfect. And some of that's been accuracy. But if you can't throw, I don't know how you work on your accuracy. But you're the one who played the position at the NFL level. What is he doing to get better, to improve, to stay prepared if he's not able to throw?
I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, and it's not all just mental. They're all about every rep should be a rep that you should take in practice, offensive rep as a quarterback, run or pass, and that you stand right behind the quarterback and you're watching the play and you know what the play is, and you look at the defense and you read the defense. And sometimes it's even a better perspective to watch from a little bit of a distance. You pick up a lot of things that sometimes you don't quite see. So there's always that. And that's a given, right? You just have to do that. But there's other ways to get involved. You can do a lot of drills where you can go through the physical drops and movements. Your legs aren't hurt. And I would imagine you could probably do some of the handoffs and some of that stuff. I don't know if bumping or banging into the hand is an issue or whatever. I would try to do as much physically as I possibly can. Most guys are stupid, and they'll try to throw too fast, too early, and then you just keep aggravating it. When it's a finger injury, it doesn't. Leg injuries tend to have more of an impact because your feet aren't quite set, and then your mechanics are off, and then you start wearing muscles in your arm out or fatiguing them, and you get muscle soreness because you're not in a mechanically sound position. But with a finger, I think it's going to be something that's just going to linger for the rest of the year. I don't think he's ever going to get better from it. It's just learning how to manage it and kind of deal with it. And sometimes that's not a bad thing, Sean, because you kind of forget you kind of forget about nerves, you forget about a lot of things, and it just kind of helps you to kind of dial into things when you kind of have one of those little nagging type of injuries. I don't know how it'll impact his throwing hand because the throwing motion, the flicking of your wrist could be unusual and odd. When you get out in a game, you have adrenaline, so the pain isn't quite as much. It's kind of after and maybe during the week in practice. But there's a lot that he can do, and he needs to do, and should do, and will do to get himself right and ready. But he shouldn't be taking reps away from Isaac Wilson if Isaac's going to be the starter. Isaac Wilson needs 100% of the reps this week in practice.
All right, last thing before I let you go. It's artificial flavor season because Halloween candies being stocked, and pumpkin spice and maple is everywhere. What is your favorite artificial flavor, and what's your least favorite?
Black licorice, hands down, 100%. My least favorite artificial flavor. It should be outlawed. It's not candy. It's like a medicine that you would get at the doctor. Yes. Cannot stand black licorice. My favorite flavor. I don't know if this is a thing. I am a huge. Oh man.
You could give me two options if it's that hard to decide.
If you're talking like there's nothing better than a Reese's peanut butter cup like that.
Yeah, but
that could be a staple
like
diet for me. So if it's a peanut butter flavor, a peanut butter chocolate flavor, I don't know. But if you're talking about a candy, I'm going to go with I like sour stuff. Sour apple is kind of a thing. So I'll go sour apple.
You know what we're finding? Sour apple is a very polarizing flavor. It's either people's favorite or it's their least favorite.
Yeah.
Scott, it's always great talking to you. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
You got it. We'll see you.
Scott Mitchell, host of the Down and Dirty podcast, which will be found soon on ESPN700sports.com and the ESPN 700 app. You'll hear Scott alongside Bill Riley and Stevenson Sylvester on your Utah radio broadcasts. 877-353-0700. By the way, for you to weigh in, your favorite artificial flavor and your least favorite artificial flavor. I love maple. Pumpkin spice, I'm just okay. Anything that is grape flavored, not actual grapes, but the grape flavoring, anything that's grape flavored, throw it directly into the trash. Like off of the conveyor belt at the candy factory, directly into a dumpster.
I'm ashamed that I didn't come up with black licorice as my least favorite too until Scott said it. I think I said coffee, which is up there for me. But
can you imagine being like
black licorice is certainly the worst.
Can you imagine being in like the sweets business and you decide to invest time, equipment, money on manufacturing black licorice products? Like, when did people actually want that? In the 1950s?
And maybe even before that,
Gross.
Honestly. It's an old flavor, for sure.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll take a break from football discussion. Deja Young, former Utah women's basketball player, now a member of the staff, is going to join us next. We're only about 2 months away from basketball season up on the hill. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. I just went down a very strange rabbit hole during the break, James, about artificial flavorings and when they were invented and when they were introduced. We're going to get into a little artificial flavorings history lesson eventually on the show today. But right now it's time to talk Utah women's basketball. Deja Young, who was just on the roster, has decided to make the jump into the coaching world, on-floor assistant for your Runnin' Utes ladies up there this season. Joins us and gives us a few minutes here on the program on the Sean O'Connell Show. Deja, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Did you always know that you were going to be a basketball coach?
I kind of had some thoughts about it. A lot of my previous coaches always pushed me that way and said that I should go into it. So it's been in my head.
Now, a lot of times the transition happens sort of slowly, right? You figure out over the years, maybe you don't want to work in the corporate world and you want to get back to the thing you love, but you go right from the playing floor to the bench to coach. How quickly, or I guess, how did you make that decision so quickly, or was it already something you knew before you finished playing that this was going to be the arrangement and that you would make this move before you even stepped onto the floor as a player for the final time?
Well, the job was proposed to me at the beginning of last year because I was a fifth-year senior, and Coach Roxy threw it out there because she knew that I really wasn't wanting to go play overseas, but that was always an option for me. So after season, I really didn't think about the real world just yet because, of course, it's scary. So during season, I just thought about basketball, playing and finishing, and then afterwards, I planned on going overseas just because, a lot of people pushed me to do that because not everybody gets to play pro. But my heart just really wasn't in it, and I love basketball still. So I was like, I might as well just stay and start here. This is a great place to start and under people I trust. So, yeah.
I'm fascinated by that phenomenon. You probably had options to play overseas, which to me sounds like a great adventure to keep pursuing basketball. Why do you think your heart wasn't in that potential opportunity?
Honestly, this may sound really bad. Ever since I was younger, in ninth grade, I guess my hoop dreams of playing pro just went away. Because, basketball is hard. I don't think people understand how hard it is, how much it takes on your mental, physically and all that. And I honestly had to play college basketball because that was the only way I was going to get my school paid for. Parent household, so I was like, okay, that's really why I played, to get that degree paid for. And, it was fun, And basketball is more of a job, and I think that somebody else deserved to play overseas that just loved to play. I love it, but I don't love it that much. It's hard to explain, but
no,
yeah.
I appreciate that honesty because I think that is, for people who are just fans, it's sometimes hard to understand that there's a significant amount of sacrifice, and it's not most of us, we play and then it kind of ends in high school, and sports in high school are still fun. That's all they are. They're just fun.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to spend some time playing college football and fun in the same way. Yes, there are enjoyable elements, but it's not like it was when you're hanging out with your best friends and you got a half-hour lift, and it is a sincere, serious time commitment.
Yeah.
So I think I understand. I appreciate you explaining it, though.
Yeah, you get me. It's just the older you get, the more serious of the level. It's more of a job, and that's literally all it is. And I feel like somebody should be in that place that actually really wants to be there. I don't want to waste my opportunity, especially the great opportunity that I have here. I did not want to waste that because some people, they have to work their way up, like you said, start low, but I get to start at this great school. So it was a no-brainer, honestly.
Yeah, it's great. Deja Young, on-floor assistant for the University of Utah women's basketball team, just months after being on that women's basketball team. Coach Rob is one of my favorite people up on the Hill. She's absolutely amazing. It was really cool to see in these last couple of years, especially the culture kind of really instilled and the success that came with it. How was your relationship with her different as a member of her staff than as a player?
I would say it's not too drastically different just yet. I am on week 2. But I had a really close relation with Coach Rob. I mean, I never would have stayed if I didn't trust her, or if I didn't like being around her in general. She's a people's person. It's not hard, like you said, you fall in love with, like, everybody falls in love with her. She's just a very nice person to be around. It's never awkward or weird. Sometimes you have those relationships with your coaches. It's like, I don't know what to talk to you about, but it wasn't like that with her. And we still have that same relations, like, now, but she's taking it easy on me right now. Like, she cracks jokes on the other coaches, but she says that it's too early for me, but I'm just waiting for it. She's going to have her field day with me soon.
That's coming at some point, right? What about your relationship with teammates? Because you go that role changes very drastically, right? Now you're on the coaching staff instead of in the locker room with them.
It's really weird in certain ways. I was always like the oldest, like the captain, so I was always kind of like standoffish in some areas because I was more like the parent, you should say. Like, I had to make sure everything, everybody was okay because it was my responsibility for that most part. But I played with some of them for 3 years, and now I'm the coach. I mean, I was a leader on the floor, so now I'm just a leader in a different way. So that goes like hand in hand. So it's not telling them what to do isn't hard. It's just more like that relationship piece. Like, you can't tell me everything that you do now. Like, I can't know certain things. Like, it's a fine line, but I'm finding the difference between things, and it's going to be a little tough in the beginning. But they understand, and they don't want to put my role in a sacrifice. So they've respected it.
From an X's and O's perspective, look, one of the all-time greats in program history is off to the W now. How do you replace the production of somebody like Alyssa Peely?
I don't think that we can replace Alyssa Peely. She was phenomenal. She was great. I feel like that's not really what we're looking to do, is to replace. We're just seeing the pieces that we have, and we have really good pieces, and how we can put everybody that's on the team now together so we can flourish into this next conference. We aren't dwelling on what's left. It's gone. It's over. Like, new team, same thing, same goals. Nothing's changed.
You mentioned that moving into a new conference. Look, women's basketball, you can easily make a case that's the deepest, that's the best conference. Big 12 has some great programs as well. SEC's got some great programs. How different is the style of basketball? How different is it going to be for this program competing in the Big 12 instead of the Pac-12?
I think it's a different style of play for sure. I think Pac-12 was good. I mean, the teams are great on both sides of the conference, but I feel like this conference that we're in now will be more fast-paced, more physical. So, we've been working on that a lot and getting ready. But I think for the skills aspect of it, I think we're ready. We're good. It's all about the runs. I mean, I guess we'll see once we get in there. But we have high hopes of our team. We're gonna go far in the conference, far in the tourney. I mean, we got circled on our board for the tournament already. Like, we're ready. We're determined. And the good thing is they don't know much about us, so they don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, you've been on really all sides of this as a player. How much film do you need? How much familiarity do you need? Whatever, before you really know what to expect from an opponent. How many games do you have to get, or minutes even, do you have to get against somebody before you feel like you have a handle on what they are and who they are?
Well, I feel like our coaches, when I was a player, did a really good job at preparing film for us. And in practice, we would break down different scenarios of that team's offense, that team's defense. So, I mean, once you get in the game as a player, of course, it's different than, walkthroughs and practices. But I feel like we'll prepare our team the best way that we can to, be ready for whatever scenarios that those teams throw at us. It's always preparation first before games. So we'll just focus and hone in on that and just blow teams away, I guess.
So what kind of coach, like, what's your style going to be? Are you going to be the loud coach? Are you going to be the one that's like arms folded, looking mad, not really saying much? What's the Deja Young style going to look like on the bench?
I think Deja Young's style is going to be looking cute on the sideline, but serious, not yelling. I'm not a big yeller. Just a stern but laughable. I don't know, but I will be cute and I will be saying things. I won't be yelling.
Okay, like Dawn Staley is like the queen of the fits on the bench, right? Like she's styling great, like big brands, great custom shoes, all that stuff. Is that what you're going to be going for?
Oh God, no! I'm not. I'll be nowhere close to Dawn Staley. She's like a legend. But like, give me a little bit of games to put some outfits together, and I'll figure it out. But
all right. Well, maybe throughout the season we'll do like a fit check weekly with you. You can let us you can let us know what you're wearing. All right. Before I let you go, we're talking about this today because this is not a serious show. Your favorite artificial flavor and your least favorite artificial flavor, because it's that time of season. You got all the Halloween candy coming out. Some people like the watermelon. Some people like the grape. Some people like the cherry. I want your favorite, your least favorite.
Okay, my favorite artificial flavor is, because I'm just thinking about Gatorades because of sports. So I say orange is my favorite. Orange or mango, anything. Love. Anything that's like grape, passion fruit, lime, throw it away. It's disgusting. It should not even be in the factories.
I am with you. I just said that exact same thing about grape. Like just straight off of the assembly line into the dumpster. It's not worth even manufacturing. Grape is disgusting. Orange, I'm kind of middle of the road on orange. I'm surprised to hear you say that, but that's fine. Like to each their own. You can have all the orange. I'll keep the cherry flavor. I know, like, I love cherry flavor. Not a lot of people do, so it's all right. But I'm not judging you because we're on the same page with grape.
Yeah, just throw grape away, and then we can come to terms with that one.
All right, Deja. Good luck with camp and with the upcoming season. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. Congratulations on the new position, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Great stuff from Deja Young. Great player for the University of Utah, 1,000 points plus. I mean, like she said, had a leadership role on that team. And how wild is that? Your coach walks up to you before your fifth-year senior, before your actual season, just like, hey, is this something you would be interested in? So you're playing a year trying to figure out, like, if that's the right move for you, if you're going to, like, pursue pro opportunities or if you're going to just move directly into coaching. Wild.
Yeah, that is unusual to say the least. But good for her, especially if, I loved her honesty about how she just didn't love playing quite as much as other people do, and that deterred her from pursuing a pro career. It's nice to be able to go, you know what, let me try this coaching thing.
And let me tell you something. We're going to look back potentially on this as an unbelievably genius professional move.
Yeah.
Earlier on the show today, we had Morgan Scalley on. Morgan Scalley did this exact thing. He could have been playing at least arena football. And back then, the Arena League paid well. It was like an actual livable salary. It's not like it is today where they get like $50 a game. It was still a product. The Utah Blaze, they were going to sell Morgan Scalley jerseys. He was probably going to be a two-way player for that team. He could have pursued his pro opportunities, but whether his heart wasn't in it or he knew that the ceiling was only so high, he immediately jumped into the coaching ranks, and that gives you a head start. Morgan, before he's 50 years old, is going to be the head coach at the University of Utah. He's going to be making, $4 million plus per year as a head coach. 10 years sooner, maybe, as much as 10 years sooner than he would have had he decided to pursue professional football as a player. And we saw this, by the way, this is all over the country. You've got all these guys who decide, like, you know what, I could be a backup quarterback for a few years. Instead, I'm going to go start my coaching career. You remember Mike Bercovici down at Arizona State University when Utes were in the Pac-12? He did this. He's on a staff at like 25 years of age. Tommy Rees with the Notre Dame Irish and Fighting Irish, and then with Alabama and all these places. The guy could have been bouncing around as like a third quarterback in the NFL for a long time. Just jumped straight into coaching. And because of that, before he was 30 years old, was offensive coordinator for like top 10 schools.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson. I mean, we've got plenty of examples.
Yeah, Brian Johnson's another good one. And the reality is, for all these guys that we mentioned, there wasn't the UFL that there is now. There wasn't the XFL and the USFL. the latest iterations of those things. So it turns out it was a smart move by them to say, you know what, playing up through college was great. Let me try this coaching thing, and it's turned out really well for them. I'm anxious to see what kind of career Deja Young can carve out as a coach for as long as she wants to coach, because it's like you said, it's a road that has been successful in the college football ranks for sure.
And if you're not going to be a star player, like if you're going to play in the pros, but you're just going to be kind of a rank and file individual, yes, money can be great. I'm sure if she had gone overseas, she could have incredible experiences and made a good living for herself, and that's great if your heart is in it. She said her heart was not in it. But coaching is still, unless you're a star, like a transcendent type player at a particular skill, it's still a pay your dues kind of business. So you either have to pay your dues as a well-known player, or you have to pay your dues climbing the ladder in coaching. And look, this is a great position for her right out of school. It's a phenomenal job. But she's still paying her dues here. She's the lowest on the ladder in a Power 4 program, which is a better starting point than most people get.
A Power 4 program that's very much on the rise.
Absolutely.
So
it's an incredible, like, it's just the move shows a lot of foresight, I guess is my long-winded way of saying that. Because when you're an athlete, it can be very easy to hone in on that being such a huge part of your identity, and that being the skill that you have to offer the world and whatever else. And you can ride that thing out until the wheels fall off. And oftentimes we see this where guys have, decent careers, marginal careers, kind of in and out of the NFL careers. And then where do they end up? They're like, oh, now what am I going to do? Now I'm 28 years old, starting off as a graduate assistant trying to coach instead of being 21 or 22 years old doing the same thing. So a significant head start. I applaud Deja Young for following her heart. It's cool. It's cool to see. Also, a fellow anti-artificial flavoring on grape. That's very important to me.
Yeah, Grape's not having a great day,
Grape.
which makes me sad because I guess I'm one of the few people in the world that likes artificial grape flavoring.
And that's why you're not the kind of person who would be wearing a Breitling luxury timepiece around. It's for sophisticated and classy individuals like myself. Celebrating 140 years of first Breitling luxury timepieces. Just compliment every outfit. And it's not just if you're dressing up and you're going out in the suit. It's not just if you're riding in the fancy car. Understated luxury, really great stuff. So many different options now. Check them all out at Breitling.com. All right, lots more to get to. We got hour 3 coming up. I had an interesting conversation with Van Fillinger about playing hurt. We're going to get to that in about 6 minutes. And because we have a short segment next, a little trivia for James Peterson on artificial flavorings and when they entered the American world.
My favorite trivia subject.
The Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. All right, because I'm quizzing everyone about artificial flavors today, James, I need to let you know. Grape flavor, the worst. That will always be the case. If I asked you to guess when artificial flavors really first hit the scene in the Western world, what year do you think that was?
1915?
1851.
1851.
Yes.
Wow. I thought I was going way too far back when I went early 20th century there.
It was called the Great Exhibition. It was in London at the Crystal Palace. And
Did you say grape exhibition?
How dare you? But that's when the artificial flavored candies were really introduced. Grape, pineapple, apple, and pear. You don't really see pear-flavored stuff anymore.
No.
What happened to pear flavoring?
So I will say this: when I served a mission in Hungary, the pear juice they had, I would get that every day. And and the best part about being in Europe is that they don't just have the 1 liter bottles of soda or juice. You can get like the 2 liter of juice because it's it's metric system, right? So I'd get a big 2 liter, and they're skinnier than our 2 liters, kind of fatter. They're skinnier. Anyway, I'd get the big 2 liter of I think it was apple pear juice. Really good. So
yeah,
we could implement more pear flavoring.
Okay, some more like the juicy pear Jelly Belly.
Oh yeah, very good.
Very delicious. I think that's the only one I can think of offhand.
Maybe Hawaii has more pear, though. Shout out to Morgan Scally, flexing that he gets his high chews from Hawaii.
I just picture Morgan heading out to like a recruiting trip at Kahuku, and like they don't get to spend any time. They don't get to enjoy those trips. It's like airport to the school, to the offices, to the house, whatever. And then I imagine him stopping at like the Superette and grabbing him some pineapple high chews.
He says he's got contacts in Hawaii that can send him high chews. So it's probably Kahuku coaches or something.
That's probably right.
I had a friend who played 1 year at Kahuku. He went to high school in St. George with me, and one of the football seasons, his aunt and uncle, he's Polynesian, so aunt and uncle live in Hawaii, and they were like, "We'll let you stay with us for a semester, and you can play football at Kahuku." So he played. I don't know if he played varsity. It was our sophomore year, but he got to play for the Red Raiders, which is really cool.
Pretty awesome. It's like it's legendary out there. It's like, I mean, I've been to one game and it's like it's different.
Yeah,
the whole town shows up. It's like Texas, but on the North Shore. It's really great. Anyway, 1851. That's the year that artificial flavors came into our lives for candy,
and grape was one of the first.
Yeah,
look at
grape
that.
was one of the first, and guess what? It's the only one that never got any better. Still trash. 877-353-0700 on the Dish Pros text line. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite artificial flavors are. You can also tweet it at me at Real OC Sports. All right, hour number 3 coming up. I had an interesting conversation with Van Fillinger yesterday at practice. Maybe we'll pull the sound for you, but more importantly, it's what he said about playing hurt. Are players still willing to do this? We need to flesh out this conversation. You should also go respond to the Twitter poll at Real OC Sports. Lots to get into when it comes to playing hurt, especially with your starting quarterback questionable for Saturday's game in Logan. Sean O'Connell Show on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. How willing are players to push through pain, to play hurt in 2024? Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. I put the Twitter poll out. I think that maybe this has changed because of NIL, because of what we see in the pros and the fact that everything kind of trickles down. But I wanted to get a sense from the listeners, a sense from the people. Are players more willing, more likely to play hurt, less likely to play hurt, or the same as always in terms of willingness to just push through? Cam Rising has a problem with his hand. We know it's not season-ending. We know it's not excessively severe. Is he going to play against the Aggies in Logan? I don't think so. Is that because he doesn't want to? I think it's probably more because the coaching staff and Cam are going to have a collaborative decision about whether or not he can re-aggravate or he can make it worse or whatever. But I had a conversation with Van Fillinger yesterday that really actually sparked this whole thought in my mind, because he's been great through 2 games. And last year, he was less than great. He was playing hard, but he wasn't nearly as productive. And it came to light over the offseason and through spring, and even some criticism from some of us like, hey, you guys don't realize what he was dealing with. And, well, here's the sound for practice. He was asked about that, and he actually volunteered some information that I was surprised to hear.
You talked about being able to play better just without your injuries. How do you assess those first 2 games?
I feel a lot healthier. I feel like I'm playing better. Of course, there's a really long way to go. I don't feel like I'm even near to my best ball, and I think I just need to keep working. And I think it was a good start. I'm happy with it, but job's nowhere near done, and I just need to keep improving and keep practicing.
What specifically do you want to improve? Pass rush, run fits?
Fundamentals and technique can always get better. Footwork, hand placement, just technique within that, and recognition. Those are all things that I always try to be intentional about in practice. But, yeah, that's about it.
Have you ever tried to sack a former teammate before?
Yeah, I think I have. I would have to think about that one. I want to say Zach Wilson, but I don't know if I played against him now that I think about it. But, yeah, I don't know.
Any special trash talk because it's going to be Bryson back there?
Yeah, probably. I'd probably say some crazy stuff about pigs, get them riled up. I don't really know.
What is this experience like to go there? I know it's not the same as maybe the BYU-Utah rivalry, but what is it to be able to play Utah State now?
Yeah, they're a Utah team, and anytime it's a Utah team, you don't want to give them a reason to have bragging rights for whatever reason. So we just want to go in there, play our ball, play the best of our ability, and do what we know we can do.
How much do you concern yourself with what happens on the offense? Does that matter to you, or how does that work?
No, that doesn't concern me at all. I think all you can do is control what you can control. Offense will control what they control, and they'll figure out whatever they need to figure out. And we just need to worry about us and do what we can every day, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of intangibles that you can't control, and you got to just do what you can do.
What is it you have confidence in most about your defense, or just the group of guys in general that are on that side of the ball?
I think probably both. Just the people that we have are all disciplined, and they all understand that what is needed in order to play a good game. They know that there's 11 people on the field, and if they can't do their job, then that leaves an opening. And so everybody has to do their job, and I trust everybody on the team that they will from their character. So.
We talked about your health being better already. Are you doing anything different? Is it just luckier this year? Why are you much healthier now than you were?
Well, I rushed back last year. I didn't want to play last season, but Logan Fano ended up tearing his ACL, and they felt that it was needed for me to play at that time. But I wasn't ready. My foot was still coming off that broken injury, so I think I definitely rushed it. But since then, I have been doing a whole different lifestyle. I've been rehabbing more, doing more treatment, working out more, eating healthy. I'm living a completely different life than I was a year ago, and I think all of it has to go into how different I feel right now than I did then.
do you enjoy the change, or does it feel like a big sacrifice?
I 100% enjoyed it. I'm 10 times happier than I was last year. Last year felt like a whole spiral, just mentally and physically. And right now I'm just going to keep pushing and see how far I can go.
Okay, so that's Van Fillinger from post-practice availability yesterday at the University of Utah. Van, for me, through 2 games, has been Utah's biggest standout defensive player. You talk about havoc plays, tackles for loss, sacks. His penetration is what caused the blocked field goal. What did it bounce off his helmet?
He was involved somehow, yeah.
Like this guy has been incredibly instrumental to Utah's defensive success in the first couple of weeks. 3 sacks already on the year. That's a good pace to be setting. And again, I don't know why I have to keep pointing this out, but I was probably among those who felt most critical of his performances because I watched him in high school and I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is going to be a monster. And then it took some time before, he really grew into that at the University of Utah. And then it was like, oh, well, he's not going to improve from here. He's not getting any better. And you just heard in his own words talking about he did not want to play last year.
Took one for the team, is what it sounded like. It's with the other injuries that happened. He specifically mentioned Logan Fano. He was told by probably the coaching staff that we can't afford for you not to play the rest of the season. So he.
And by the way, that was in a year where he was recovering from the break and he was trying to get back on the field, as he said, rush back onto the field for a team that it became relatively clear we only found things out gradually about Cam Rising's lack of availability. I know that players on the team had a better sense of whether or not he was coming back or when he was coming back or when he was not coming back than we did. I know that.
They had to have. Yeah.
It's just par for the course, right? And they do an unbelievable job at the University of Utah of making sure whatever narrative stays in the locker room. But you're looking at a Van Fillinger who last year was playing hurt for a team that was kind of struggling its way to an impressive 8-win season. And I say impressive because you were dealing with some major woes injury-wise. And he, instead of being part of that tally, said, yeah, fine, I'll play. Even though I'm not 100%, I will play. And another important factor that he mentioned there that is not something we talked about 15 years ago, he talked about it being a spiral last year. Mentally and physically, it drained him. And the physically is all coaches used to care about. Now they're really good about saying, all right, your mental health, how are things? Like, I don't know if anyone has dealt with chronic pain that's listening. I don't know if anyone's dealt with chronic injury or repetitive injury where you have a problem and then you have the same problem. It is not easy, and I've been super, super blessed to not have consistent injuries, but I dealt with some lower back problems for the latter half of my fighting career. And it's just even like something minor is just wear and tear on your mind.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Being like, I don't know, am I ever going to feel 100% good again? Because when you're waking up day to day, and that's his foot. It's not like he can just be like, my hand is bothering me, I won't use it today.
Yeah, you got to use your feet.
You don't have the option to not use your foot.
I'm just going to be right-footed today.
You don't have the option to not use your back. Like, if you live, if you breathe, if you cough, if you reach for something, if you're walking place to place. So that conversation, 3 minutes or whatever it was with Van Fillinger yesterday, sparked for me like, okay, how many people in college football now are willing to do what he explained for us? How many people now who are starting caliber players are going to say, yeah, I'll play hurt. I'll play even when I'm less than 100%. I'll play even when there's going to be people sitting in the stands and doing sports media and on Pac-12 network on SiriusXM saying, hey, he's not as good as we thought he would be. Like, how many people are doing that? Or is it more common to make the business decision because you've got maybe an NFL future, or like you said, there's the alternative leagues, there's the UFL, there's the, the options with seasonal leagues, so to speak, spring leagues in football that could potentially then leapfrog you into the NFL. NIL. If you're like, well, let's see. I'm kind of a big name. I'm a local kid who's getting taken care of. I got the free truck and maybe a little bit of splash here and there for appearances. But if I play poorly because I'm hurt, that will reduce the likelihood that I am given a new deal or better deals or more NIL opportunities as I move forward. It's probably easier to get paid as someone with his reputation coming off an injury than someone with his reputation coming off a bad season because of an injury that you don't tell people about.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, these are all calculations that take place in college football now that were not part of things 10 years ago.
A new kind of business decision.
It's a business decision, right? And I'm impressed, right? I've flipped my script pretty significantly on Van because he did not want to play. Words that came out of his mouth. I did not want to play. They said they needed me.
Isn't Van fascinating, too, as an interview? The way he talks, his tone is very understated, but then he gives you some good stuff if you're listening.
Yeah.
Like, that interview was the scrum at practice we just played from yesterday. That was gold. But if you listen to the tone of his voice, he just sounds like, it sounds like coach speak. It sounds like I'm not going to give you guys much.
He sounds pretty disinterested, but he's actually giving you good stuff.
Yeah. And I told you off air before the show that it reminded me of a post-game interview from, I think, 2-3 years ago. And it was with Bill Riley and Scott Mitchell, and it became a bit afterwards because it was so funny. He mentioned, and I can't remember who it was now, but he mentioned how he had to, his roommate on the road, it was a road game, they had to share a bed. And he just, we had to share a bed. And just like, but Bill and Scott were like, you what now? And it became a bit the rest of the time. It's just, he gives you great content like a guy who, like the Steve Smiths and the Eric Weddles who sound like they're interested in talking to you, for example, but he also doesn't sound like he's that interested in talking to the media. It's fascinating to me. I love it. I love him for that.
It's easy to root for someone when you find out that, hey, I made a sacrifice for my team last year. And it's a pretty thankless one, if we're being honest, because you're a defensive player who, instead of people praising you and what you've done this year when you're healthy, they're saying like, hey, is he okay? What's wrong with this guy? Why isn't he faster? Why is he taking bad angles? Why is he? Well, because he's on one foot.
Yeah.
And it's very, very easy to put that out there and to say, hey, could you guys let these idiots on the radio and on television know that I'm hurt?
I got a bad wheel here, guys.
But like,
doing the best I can.
I mean, it's not like he made a point of doing that, right?
No.
So he made that sacrifice.
And by the way, in a season, they didn't even win 10 games, let alone a championship season. He wasn't sacrificing to win a championship last year. He was just doing what he was told.
That's exactly right. You take the words right out of my mouth, where it's like, okay, if I know we're winning a conference championship, it's probably a little bit easier for me to be like, yeah, this is worth it. I'm going to play hurt. When the season clearly is far from ideal and you're still willing to do it, that's a different, I think, demonstration of character and the culture of Utah football and what it means to you individually, because the culture is made up of those individuals. And only because somebody like Van is that invested in making sure the team is successful, even to the detriment of his own physical and mental health, that's impressive to me. And I need to know, 877-353-0700, but the poll is out at Real OC Sports. Do we feel like this is common now, less common than it used to be, or is it the same as it always was? I asked Delane Fitzgerald about that when he joined us, and he was pretty direct. He said, look, kids are not as tough as they used to be. Well,
gotta love Delane.
In generalities, that might be true, but we can't say that about Van Fillinger anymore. If we ever questioned it in the first place, we can't say that. He was ready to take one for the team. He was ready to do it the hard way.
I could have guessed that would have been his answer too. Delane Fitzgerald.
Well,
it is awesome.
He went further than I thought he was going to take his answer, and was. You should go check out the interview.
Yes.
At ESPN 700 Sports or on the ESPN 700 app. Delane Fitzgerald, the SUU head coach, coming off a big win over UTEP for his team. And I asked him about that, about toughness, about this, about the willingness to play hurt. And he gave us the details on exactly where those tough kids come from.
Yeah. And he didn't drag Utah high school players through the mud this time either.
He wasn't dragging them through the mud the first time.
No, he wasn't. He was being very honest about it. You're right. That's a gross exaggeration. Flag on me.
Flag.
Is that a 10-yarder?
It's a 10-yard penalty.
He was being very honest about how they're harder to recruit.
Delane Fitzgerald, when he joined us prior to the Utah game, and I talked to him about recruiting and filling his roster with Utah guys, he said, look.
Not as in former University of Utah guys, but Utah high school
players. He said they're the hardest ones to recruit. And I thought it was because, people look at SUU and they're just like, it's not that great of a school. It's because they think there's better options out there for them.
Yeah, which is interesting because the reputation nationally is still Florida, Texas, California, and yet it sounds like lately, according to Delane Fitzgerald's experience, that Utah high school players are starting to think like those kind of players think.
And honestly, they should, because the numbers in recent years speak to the fact that recruiting continues to grow in the state of Utah. More and more and more power schools are coming to the mountains, and they're being like, what is that guy?
Corner Canyon is on the rise nationally still, for example.
It's insane. It's wild that they beat IMG and then they got beat in their own state. I wonder how that's interpreted by, like, if you're a coach I'm not going to use Sark as an example because he's a Texas coach, but he's obviously familiar with this state. But, like, if you're Kirby Smart, there's no Utah kids on the Georgia roster that I'm aware of, right?
Yeah,
there's a ton of IMG kids on that roster. So if you're Kirby Smart and your staff is like, hey, we should look at this school because their guys just beat IMG and this guy had 3 touchdowns in that game, we should go take a look at these guys. If you're like, okay, yeah, that's something to note, and then the next week they lose to Lone Peak, do you say to yourself, wow, that Lone Peak team must also be really good? Or do you say to yourself,
transitive property?
Or do you say that was a fluke?
So now we have 3 schools to raid if we're Georgia.
Well, maybe
no, it is
because they don't have an intimate awareness,
right?
And they shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't expect them to, right? But they don't know the quality of coaching that they're getting down there. They don't know the quality of, like, the weight program at a place like Corner Canyon, and we're using that as the example. But
Van Fillinger, former Charger himself,
like Bingham is the same way. Lone Peak is the same way. Mountain Ridge is the same way. There's a million different, not a million, but there's a bunch of different schools in the state right now that are little mini colleges that approach it like that. And because of that, I guess, according to Coach Fitzgerald, it gets harder for Southern Utah, Weber State, Utah Tech to recruit those kind of guys because now you're seeing your classmates and guys you compete against going to Power 4 schools in BYU and Utah, going to USC, going to Oregon. And you're probably, because I remember being a delusional 17-year-old, being like, well, I'm as good as him.
Yeah. Coach just didn't see it. If Coach would have put me in the game in 82, man.
We're taking state.
We would have taken state. An update on the poll, by the way, with the more likely, less likely to play hurt, less likely winning at over 40%.
Yeah. People think that kids these days are less likely to play hurt than before.
Hey, shouts to the people, the 28% that are like, they're more likely. Like,
well, it does. So I think NIL changes that equation as well. I can see the case made both ways because you don't, in most cases, have an opportunity to earn NIL money unless you're a player.
Yeah.
If you're on the team, great. If you're at Utah, you get a truck. But if you're on the team and you're actually playing, if you're a contributor, I mean, off air, I asked the player, how many guys are getting paid? How many guys do you know of on your roster at the University of Utah that are making money? And he was like, it's probably more than you think. And I was, well, I mean, how many guys are making really, really good money? And I gave him $100,000 a year plus as kind of like what I would characterize as really, really good money.
Oh, you didn't pay him that in NIL. You
I gave him 100. I said, if it's like, how many guys are making more than 100 grand a year?
Benchmark, yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't really know because they don't know every deal or whatever. I said, I don't really know, but it's like double digits.
Wow.
And I'm okay. That's so again, does that happen if you're not playing? No. And do you get to play if you're not playing hurt sometimes? Well, depending on how talented you are, probably no. If you're Michael Mokafisi and you tell Jim Harding, hey, I sprained my ankle, I'm not going to play this week, you might have one of those mulligans before they're just like, all right, we're done with you, kid.
Yeah, we're gonna have your backup play now.
There's just not there's not the longest leash unless you're crazy talented. And it varies by position as well. If you're an offensive lineman, you don't get to complain about being sore. If you're a defensive lineman, your rolled ankle or your bumps and your bruises, they don't matter that much. If you're a wide receiver whose game is predicated on speed and the ability to cut, and you got some swelling in your ankle, that's going to be handled a little bit differently. So the poll is out at Real OC Sports. Are you more likely, less likely, or same as always to play hurt in the modern era? It's a business. NIL is part of the thing. Before we take a break, reminder to all of you, FightCon is coming October 5th. You don't have plans on October 5th because that is a Utah bye week. You might have plans later that night because that's when the UFC card is coming to Salt Lake City. Well, there's no better way to prepare yourself for the UFC at Delta Center than to go to FightCon down in Sandy. Royce Gracie, the jiu-jitsu combat legend, is going to be here. He's going to do a seminar, going to sign some things, teach you how to adopt the Gracie technique, and then probably pose for a picture with you. I ran into him at the Bellator event in San Diego last week. He was very excited about coming to Salt Lake City. You should be excited about FightCon as well. If jiu-jitsu's not your thing, that's fine. They're going to have wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, all of the martial arts. FightCon is where it's at, October 5th, and tickets are available right now. Get them and tell them that OC sent you. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk in your home of the Utes. This is the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Cold weather's coming, ladies and gentlemen. If you're having any problems at all with your windows, you need to call my friends at Advanced Windows. Get on the schedule and get on the schedule right now. Don't wait. It's going to take 6 to 8 weeks before they actually install the new windows that you eventually order, because you see that little moisture gathering between the panes on what you've currently got. Maybe you feel a little draft coming in at the corners. Advanced Windows has the answer for you. So please, 801-850-9100. Call Nate Orchard. Call the folks over there. Get on the schedule. $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Call them now. Set up your appointment. Don't come at me in November when it's really chilly and you get the freezing rain and be like, oh, why didn't you tell me? I told you. I warned you. It was coming. Now's the time to call Advanced Windows. The warranty is handled locally. The manufacturing is handled locally. The sales, the installation is all handled locally, which means you never get the runaround. You never get someone to tell you, oh, there's a problem with your window, you better call the manufacturer. Oh, there's a problem with your window, you better call your broker, better call your installer. They're all under one roof at Advanced Window Products. AdvancedWindows.com. James, today is September 11th. 23 years removed from a day in American history that changed our lives forever, that changed sports, I think, for a very long time, if not forever, that changed the way that we travel from place to place, that was the catalyst that eventually leading America to a very, very long war that we're not all the way extricated from. And sports played a very important role in the nation beginning to heal from that really traumatic day. Also, the timeliness of the fact that this is the anniversary a day after a debate that took place on television last night that was very divisive, and the conversation around that is very divisive. On September 11th, 2001, that tragic day and the immediate days after that, America felt like a very united place. I'm not trying to get corny on you. I'm not trying to get cheesy on you, but the United States of America being attacked helped a lot of people remember that we are all Americans first. And the sports stories that have come out of this, the first pitch by the president, the home run, the Piazza home run after the first ball game played after in New York City.
The man with the red bandana.
I retweeted the red bandana story from the former Boston College lacrosse player.
ESPN does a good job of bringing that back every year on SportsCenter.
I don't know how many times that we've all watched that. I've never watched it and maintained a dry eye.
The incredible stories. And one thing I've done the last few years is I've tried to watch one of the many documentaries about that day. Hulu had a good one. It might have been National Geographic, One Day in America, that was like a 5-parter. And I did that. I did that maybe 3-4 years ago is when I started watching that one. I didn't actually finish it till like 2 years later because it's heavy stuff, obviously. But I don't remember what it was, but I happened to have just an awful day at work here. And, imagine that, having an awful day at work here. But I got home, started watching that, and, of course, you're crying as you're watching these things, especially if you're around and that day and have palpable memories of that day as we do. But it hit different because I was like, this was people's day at work.
Yeah.
I had a bad day today, but it will never be, hopefully, never be as bad as that day was for just people. That was just a work day for people.
Obviously, the sting, the acute pain of this fades over the years. Not, I'm sure, for the families that actually lost someone or the families that lost people in the ensuing issues with, the first responders and the rescuers and the illnesses that they developed, or the service members who went over and fought in the war against terror or whatever else.
The people that were just traveling for work or whatever that happened to be on one of these planes.
Yeah. I remember again, this is a sports show, so the sports side of it is kind of what I'm talking about here. But I was a senior in high school when this happened, and the first period class during football season was effectively the football team lifting together. It was called powerlifting, but it was the lifting practice that you had. And to get into the class, you were on the football team. So I went to school, and when I was a senior in high school, I didn't turn on the television before I went to school. I was rolling out of bed, grabbing whatever sustenance, shoving it in my face, and then hurrying to school so I wouldn't be late. And I walked in, and a much more organized and much more punctual member of my team, who's a great friend of mine, Charlie Jukes, shout out to Juke Baby. He was like, hey, did you see what happened? And we're walking in the halls. I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. And we walked into the weight room, and like all high school classrooms at the time, you had one of the big box televisions hanging on that stand in the corner, and it was on to the coverage. So I'm there with my football team watching this insane, unimaginable thing unfold, and I'm an 18-year-old kid. I had just turned 18. And I was like, what is going on here? And I went to school. I went home. My dad, who had just barely missed the Vietnam draft in his age, was terrified that his two sons were going to be drafted into the military because I had just turned 18 and I have an older brother as well. So he was very, very worried about this. And it just was like, we're 23 years removed, but today, driving into work today, you hear the tributes and you hear people talking about it, and it was a big day, even thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from all of, the root cause of this and from where it actually happened in New York City. Here in Salt Lake, it was a big day.
I remember hearing people tell stories because the Olympics were here just a few months later, 5-6 months later, and people talking about how heavy the security and police presence was around the 2002 Olympic Games.
Yep.
And I remember you couldn't watch a sporting event or big time event that didn't have to do with sports, but particularly sports, without people mentioning, well, I'm worried this could be a bomb threat at this game, for a long time after that. And it's one of the things that you said has changed sports forever. We're kind of used to it more now, but the security around these games way more tight than it was pre 9/11.
Absolutely. And the airport experience, I mean, I travel a lot for the PFL job. The airport experience is still very different than it was before. We have a whole government agency that got established because of this. There's just, and I don't have a overarching sports point here, and I'm not trying to give you any kind of hot takes. I'm just, 9/11 was a remember where you were when moment, and it's the only one I think of my life.
Yeah, I think it is for me too. I was in 4th grade, and if you didn't watch the news when you were a senior in high school, you can imagine you can imagine a 9-10-year-old. And I had a friend who I got to school and we're lined up outside and getting ready to go into class, and he's like, "Did you see the news?" And I remember thinking, I'm 9. I don't know. I didn't see the news.
Like, what news?
And he's like, some Japanese dudes are invading New York.
That was not correct information.
I still, every 9/11, I laugh because I remember that's how I was delivered. That news was, no, it wasn't Japanese, but anyway, that's a 9-year-old's perspective of what happened there. And I remember just how serious the adults were. And I don't remember, I tried to make a joke and it wasn't even about anything, but it was just making a joke in class, and my teacher basically said, "Not today."
Yeah.
And those things, I never watched the news. I watched the news the rest of the day that day. It was one of those, a very significant day in my life, and you know, condolences to. We did have a handful of Utahns that were involved, that were victims. Condolences to those families, and I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's good to take a moment on days like this to remember what that was and what some of those families that are still living that, what that's like, and to remember, as you said, as you started this out, the unity that we had as a country.
That was one thing. I mean, we're in a dark cesspool politically right now, and I was only 18 and was not paying close attention to a lot of the things that now I pay closer attention to when this happened. But I don't think it's even arguable that after this, the way that the country united and the way that community service and appreciation for your neighbors and appreciation for, you know, people who do work in jobs that are on some level selfless and heroic, like that's a positive that came out of a very, very negative thing. And there's been a lot of like disagreement on the response and things like that. And I'm not here to tell you one way or another how you should feel about any of that. I remember that even in our little corner of the globe in Sandy, Utah, Jordan High School, the decision was made that we were going to raise funds by selling American flags. We were going to raise funds to send to the relief and to the rescue efforts and to the families that lost people. And that's, I think, a cool thing still. Like, I remember you had a hard time buying an American flag because they were selling out everywhere because people wanted it to be known that I'm proud of this country and this is my place. This is my home. And it shouldn't take tragedy for us to feel like that, and it shouldn't take tragedy for us to feel united. And sports give us like these tiny little microcosms of those feelings sometimes, where we're all listening to the national anthem and getting a little bit teary-eyed, and you got the flyover on a Saturday or whatever at LaVelle Edwards Stadium or at Merlin Olsen Field or up at Rice Eccles, and you're just like, that's America. It can't always be like that, but we can try to have those moments be more common instead of getting on social media and yelling at each other about who you're voting for and things like that. So 9/11 was a dark, dark day in American history, and we don't have to let it be only that, because immediately afterward, we didn't let it be only that. We were united as a country. We were all pulling on the same rope, and we were trying to find a solution just to the feeling that it gave us, to the fear and all that kind of stuff. So I remember exactly where I was. I remember what it smelled like. I remember what I was wearing. I remember the first person who told me about it. I remember looking at that television and the image that I saw. And I'm sure most of you out there had similar experiences that day, and we are now 23 years removed.
Hard to believe. Time flies.
All right, we'll try and finish on a more lighthearted note on the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We'll wrap things up next on ESPN 700. So I spent yesterday feeling really, really cool driving around in an Ineos Grenadier. Never in my life have I had a cool enough car for people to roll down their windows and be like, what is that? Where did you get that? Is that brand new? Who makes that? It happened to me in less than 24 hours. I had the Ineos Grenadier in my possession for just less than 24 hours, and it happened to me 3 times. So if you're looking for a car that will turn heads and has the capability to go off-road down in southern Utah, to carry you smoothly, comfortably, and safely on the highways as well, Ineos Grenadier out at our Warner Ineos Grenadier. Out 5600 West, 2400 South, out in West Valley. Go check it out. Tell them that OC sent you. It really is an awesome, awesome car. And I think my wife's going to make me buy one very soon. Crosstalk with Spence Checketts is coming up here. I have one trivia question for you. This is based on a non-sports topic that we discussed today. 877-353-0700 to claim the the Pitbull tickets that we have available. That's right. Mr. Worldwide is coming, and we've got tickets to give away for you at 877-353-0700. We were talking artificial flavorings, and I did a little history, did a little research. What year at the Great Exhibition were artificial flavorings first introduced in London? I gave you the year. James was impressed by it. And Spence Checketts is looking at me with great confusion. Can we turn on Spence?
Hello. So I caught some of the show today.
Yeah.
Sounded good.
Thanks.
Did it stall? Why are we talking? What's going on? What happened?
Well, I threw that in. Okay, so I walked into the grocery store yesterday.
Okay.
Pumpkin spice everywhere.
Sure.
Maple flavored everything everywhere.
That time of year.
I love me some maple flavoring.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not available all year.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll give me some of that maple stuff. And it got me thinking, what's my favorite artificial flavoring? What's your favorite and your least favorite artificial flavoring? The date that it really changed, that flavorings really changed in our world.
The people need to know these things. Lavender is not a flavor, but it is a scent.
Yes.
May I submit lavender?
Well,
it's calming.
Unless you're going to eat it, no.
Okay, then I'll have to think about it. I do like. I mean, who doesn't like maple?
Maple's great. It's not my favorite.
Pumpkin spice is too basic this time of year. Like pumpkin spice lattes. You're at a Starbucks, you don't want to hear it. It's annoying. I'll have to think about that.
My favorite, I love pineapple. Morgan Scally, that was his favorite as well when he joined us on the show.
What about, you had Morgan on. Oh, I heard you tease that. That's right.
I hate grape artificial flavor.
Okay. Does hot sauce, if I said sriracha, does that count, or is that a hot sauce?
Depends.
I'm sorry, Sean. I did not know that this was the topic today.
If you're choosing a high chew or a blow pop or a Jolly Rancher,
so now you're talking my language.
Or you're grabbing that Jelly Belly.
Can I submit green apple is underrated for a Jolly Rancher?
There it is.
Okay, all right.
People either love it or hate it.
Okay.
The responses today have been one end or the other. It's either people's favorite or it's least favorite.
Okay.
More responses on green apple, but on both sides of the fence.
I find it underrated.
Yeah.
I like a good green apple Jolly Rancher.
They are awesome.
Yeah.
And the caramel apple sucker, where it's that sour apple candy with the caramel wrapped around it.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Mix that with some dog or cat. Just kidding.
Don't.
I know.
Don't.
I know.
Don't do it.
I know. I'll wait till.
What about your least favorite? What's an artificial flavor you're just like, I'm not doing this. I won't eat it. Because for me, that's grape.
I'm not a grape guy. I think I can go with you there. I do enjoy grapes, but as an artificial flavor, yes, I think grape is left wanting.
Are you a black licorice guy, Spence?
I'm not, but my grandmother on my father's side was, so there's a little nostalgia there.
Yeah, sure.
She always had the black licorice gum.
Oh, gross.
And she always offered it. And I'm like, Grandma, no, thank you. But she loved it. So if I smell black licorice, I think of my grandmother.
Yeah.
But no part of me wants to taste it myself.
Yeah. My dad still likes the Good and Plenties and the Necco wafers.
Oh, the Necco wafers are horrible.
Yeah, I'm like, Dad, it's 2024. It's no longer 1955. You
There
can
are
have
new
delicious.
things.
Have options.
You can have delicious. He also likes the circus peanuts.
Ah, okay.
I'm convinced those things have not been manufactured for 70 years.
Yeah.
They're just using the same warehouse.
What? Don't they now use them in the boxes for the packaging? They use the actual circus peanuts.
They're so gross.
What's your favorite nut while we're doing this on the show?
I'm a cashew guy.
Ooh, good call. Love me a cashew.
Yeah, I love some.
Trader Joe's right now has a garlic pistachio cashew that is lovely. Anyway, check it out.
It's nice.
Hey, this is not my this is your deal, dude.
No, I like it.
Okay.
Crosstalk is brought to you by Ineos Grenadier. 2400 South, 5600 West in West Valley. Browse online, WarnerIneosGrenadier.com. What's coming up on the drive?
So today we are going to turn the page to the weekend. That's kind of how my show rolls during the fall. Monday recap, Tuesday light recap, kind of look ahead. Wednesday completely turn the page. Coach Witt, heard you talking about earlier. We got Isaac at 1. We got Brandon at 2. What does that mean? I think Isaac is playing on Saturday. All the intel I have indicates that's the deal. And then after it's 3 weeks, essentially, if you include week 0, at this point, I kind of like to do what do we know, right? So the first few weeks of the college football season for me has always been observation, not conclusion. And now that we have a couple of games, 3 for some, what do we know? Like, do we think Oregon is really not good because they barely survived the entire state of Idaho?
Yes.
Are you ready to say that Tennessee, Miami, are they Texas, Ohio State, Georgia? Like, are they national championship contenders? What do we know about our in-state teams, right? So we're going to do a lot of that on the program today. Rookie camp opens for our local hockey club. Excited for that. And, of course, we're going to get you ready for week 2 of pro football, which begins tomorrow. So our guest list, Amy Donaldson. We're going to talk a little football with Omar Ruiz from the NFL Network. And we're going to do a little BYU with one of my favorite BYU goobs, my guy Spencer Litton. He's going to stop by from BYU TV because occasionally, you know the deal, when you're prepping for the show, you try to consume all the content you can, get all the local stuff. And occasionally I'll flip on their show, the BYU guys down, and it makes me so happy. They're such sweet guys, and I love the way they go about their job. And when they talk Utah BYU, it warms my heart. And Spencer's the nicest kid out. I'm not bringing him on to crack on him. But every time they launch in, like last week, it was like, what would you rather win, a Big 12 championship or the Utah game? And I'm like, that's awesome that you even think that way. Can you imagine if we did that on our shows? Hey, Ute fans, what do you want this year, Big 12 championship or win over BYU? You know how quickly people would change the channel? So every time I hear my guys down there do something silly like that, I like to bring them on. So we'll do some BYU, we'll do some Utah, right off the top, college football, NFL, and then we'll do a little hockey club. And last night I emceed a dinner for the 15-year anniversary of the 2009 RSL MLS championship team. So saw Kyle Beckerman, saw Chris Wingert, Tony Beltran, Hamas and Olave, Jason Kreis, all those guys. RSL's back in action coming up this week, and down the stretch we go to the MLS playoffs. I do love me some fall soccer. Maybe if they get a home playoff game, I can drag you out there. You enjoy it. It's fun.
You can call it fall football.
You can if you'd like.
If you'd like.
I mean, you do kick the ball with your foot in soccer, as we've been over. In football, just a little kicking. Just a little kicking.
Less and less, by the way,
sometimes,
as the years go on.
Sometimes worth 3, sometimes worth 1. So fall means football, and it means football on the drive, 2 to 6.
1851, by the way. That's when artificial flavorings were introduced to the world.
That's when fall footy was introduced. Oh, sorry.
1851. We do have correct answers on our Dish Pros text line, which is why I was able to give you that information.
Very good knowledge. And check that link. I just saved you a bunch of money the rest of your life.
I love it.
You're going to love it.
Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show, the Rising Report, Eric Weddle, and a lot more. It's ESPN 700, your home of the Utes.